to come here, what'd you expect?
I expected the usual seminar type thing that I normally attend, and we make presentations, but I found this one to be more interactive than the usual. So it was quite refreshing for me.
Did you know anything about Robert Jackson? In your legal education and process, does that mean much to you?
I know just a bit about it. I must say not quite so much, because maybe I wasn't just focusing on that area. Yeah, but I know, at least from what I know, is that it's they're always trying to promote international criminal and international humanitarian law.
When you were in Gambia, did you ever think you'd be here in the world of international criminal law?
Yes and no. I know that I've always loved criminal law. That's what I always did. When I graduated from university, I went back home and immediately I was appointed as public prosecutor. And this was even before I got my bar, which means I could only appear in magistrates' courts, what we call back home, not high courts. After I got my bar and went back, I also went straight into criminal prosecutions. And that's what I have been doing. I have always wanted, though, to try my hand at international criminal prosecutions. And when I left the Gambia, after the end of my career with the government there, I joined the ICTR. And straight away that plunges me into international criminal prosecutions, and which I did for a couple of years before I was elected as deputy prosecutor of the ICC. So I knew that I had sort of my eye on international prosecution in some form or another. Maybe not to this level, probably, but I knew that this is what I wanted to do.
Hassan Jalal from Gambia.
Yeah.
Did you know him?
Oh yes, oh yes. When I came back to the Gambia from my studies, Hassan was, I think, either the Solicitor General or the Attorney General. I can't recollect quite well. And I worked directly under him. In fact, Hassan is one of those people who encouraged me into criminal prosecutions. You know, I worked in his in the Attorney General's office when he was Attorney General, and somehow he always thought that, you know, I would be good at prosecuting. And I remember he kept on encouraging me to join the Director of Public Prosecutions Department and to do criminal appeals and convincing though, but at a very early time, he sort of saw potentials in my being good in this area.
Do your paths cross with his? Do you get to see him frequently?
Yes, absolutely, because when I was at the ICTR, just before I left, Hassan was appointed as prosecutor of the International Criminal Court, and prosecutor of the International Criminal Tribunal for Rwanda. And I was then a legal advisor, and shortly before I left, I was promoted to senior legal advisor. So I worked with Hassan very closely, and even up to now, I seek his advice all the time, and he also sometimes runs some issues by me. And yeah, we in fact, I can say we're family friends.
I asked Hassan this question. How important is it for these tribunals to have Africans as prosecutors? And you said it was important. Do you feel that same sense?
I feel the same. I think it's extremely important, both for the ICTR, but also for the ICC. I think it's important to have African Africans acting as prosecutors or working for the court or with the court in some capacity or another. I think you must have heard already there are these aspersions that ICC is a Western court, that ICC is a new form of neocolonialism for Africa. And also you know that right now all of our cases is not, or most of our cases are focused in Africa. Not of our own design, but by the very way things happen, that all the referrals we receive so far as a court are from Africa. And the Sudanese case was also referred to us by the UN Security Council, effectively making us very active in Africa now. And the last perception that we want to see is for it to be thought that ICC is just targeting Africa. And I think if we show the court to be a truly international court, you know, with Africans occupying responsible positions, decision-making positions, and also acting in Africa, I think this can help to dispel this feeling that is coming up unfortunately, that ICC is a Western court set up to work in Africa, or set up to only direct its investigations and prosecutions on Africans and African leaders. Your,
I guess, description is you're in charge of the Prosecution Division of the Office of Prosecutor. What do you do?
I present the case to court.
Okay.
I have a team of lawyers. The office is formed in such a way that we have teams set up cutting across divisions. The Office of the Prosecutor is divided into 3 divisions mainly: the Investigations Divisions, the Prosecutions Divisions, and the Jurisdiction, Complementarity, and Cooperation Division. And we form teams from each of these divisions, what we namely call the joint teams. And from the very beginning, the lawyers from my division are involved in the investigations, together with the investigators. And the Jurisdiction and Complementarity Division are responsible for jurisdictional issues, initial analysis, cooperation issues, opening the doors for us to go in. And so it's a joint team. And my division, once we make a case, the application is drafted in my division. And it is, of course, the other divisions contribute, because they would, the issues of investigative and jurisdiction cooperational issues come up in these applications. So there is a joint effort in that regard. But the presentation or the filing is done by the senior trial lawyers within my division. And when there is an argument, for instance, before the chambers, it is my division that does it. When there is a presentation of the application, it is my division that does it. In fact, the case presentation, you know, from the beginning to the end, even up to appeals, is done by my division.
So you're in the middle of the Bashir case?
I'm in the middle of the Bashir case, yes.
For the tape, what is the status of the case?
Well, right now, we've made an application. And we have made...
It's an application for what?
For an arrest warrant to issue against Bashir. And we've made the application public, ensuring that we highlight the crimes that we feel that Bashir is personally responsible for. The application is before the judges of the pretrial chamber. They are looking at it, and they can do a couple of things. They can be satisfied with the evidence that we have presented to them asking for the warrant to issue, and they issue it. They can be not satisfied with the evidence we've presented and dismiss the application, or they can ask us to clarify certain issues or come up with additional evidence, and they'll still consider it. So these are the things that can happen with the application.
Do they have a timeline, or that they normally react to?
They don't have a timeline, but from precedents, we see that arrest warrants have issued in as short as 1 month, in 1 month, and sometimes has gone up to 3 months. So we are looking at a span of 1 to 3 months.
And there are 2 arrest warrants currently issued
Yes.
in Sudan,
Yes.
and they are for whom?
The 2 arrest warrants were issued following our investigations and into that situation.
Right.
And it's against Ahmed Haroun, who was then the Interior Minister, but is presently the Minister for Humanitarian Affairs. An arrest warrant has also been issued against Ali Khousheb. Ali Khousheb is a Janjaweed leader. So these arrest warrants were issued, I think, since 2006 probably, but they've not been executed yet. And we have made the call. We have requested for Sudan to cooperate. We've also asked other partners to call on the Sudan to cooperate to hand over the 2 people indicted by the court, but they've not done that.
That puts the judicial process into really the political will range. Is that where Luis finds himself spending more time advocating the policy? Is that a fair statement of where he finds himself?
Well, I mean, you would recall that the Sudanese situation was referred to us by the UN Security Council. And what we think we should do, you know, as the prosecutors, as the persons having found the evidence, and is to go back and report as requested by us, by the resolution 1593 requested from us, is for the prosecutor to go back and report to the UN Security Council the status of what is happening with the investigations into this situation. In fact, he does a report every 6 months. And in all these reports, he has been updating the Security Council as to the level of cooperation with the Sudanese government. In the last 2 reports, I think he has categorically told the UN Security Council that the Sudanese government is not cooperating with the court. They have publicly declared it. I think it is for the Security Council to now look for ways of assisting the court to enforce the execution of the warrants, and to urge the Sudanese government to cooperate with the court, as well as to encourage others to urge the Sudanese government to cooperate with the court. Right. This is what we are doing. Both the prosecutor and myself have been making various missions to partners we think that should be important in requesting or urging the Sudanese government to cooperate with the court. The prosecutor has met a couple of times to brief the Arab League. He's also been to the African Union a couple of times. I've also been to the African Union. I've met with the chairperson of the African Union. We have updated them and we've told them what we were doing, because I feel that we just have to respect each other's mandate. The African Union has demanded humanitarian aid and, you know, security and deploying the peacekeepers, etc. But our mandate is justice. And I think we need to complement each other and see how the 2 mandates can work together instead of pushing one off the table whilst advancing the other one.
Do you see progress?
I don't think it is going badly so far. There was a bit of some disappointing moments, I have to say, when there was the request by the African Union for Article 16 to be used to stop the investigations, but I think that's not going very well with them. So at least that is good. And we have had some fairly positive reactions from individual African member states. You know, both the prosecutor and myself have been doing these meetings with some African heads of state, and the reaction is positive. I think the tide is going to turn. I think that can happen. But it needs us to also be consistent, sending the message, you know, that this is our mandate that we have been given and we are doing it. We are basing everything on the evidence. We're just following what the evidence has presented to us.
sort of a strategic decision to go public with this. What was the rationale behind that?
Well, we feel that the application first is going to expose as much as possible what is happening in Darfur today. I think this is very crucial in getting support for the warrants if they are issued. Because if people understand what is going on, if they know that today, if there had not been such an organization of the crimes, such an orchestration of the crimes from the very top,
Right.
they will understand that what is happening in Darfur is not chaotic. It's organized. And we are hoping that if the warrants are issued, there will be support if people understand how the crimes are being committed,
Right.
how the crimes continue to be committed, how people continue to be displaced and chased into IDP camps and not even protected there, imposing conditions of life that, will bring about their destruction. So we think this was, of course, one can always consider, do I go a sealed indictment or do I go public?
Right.
And we have had to make these decisions in Harun. We have had to make these decisions in Bemba, for instance. We went sealed because we thought that that would be the best way to get him. But this is a sitting head of state, I think. First of all, he needs to be exposed about the crimes. And then this is the way we think that he can be isolated and that there will be support for the warrants. And we would eventually be able to execute the warrants. If they issue,
Sure.
I have to add, if they issue.
Yeah. Do you suspect they would not?
No, we are very confident with the evidence we've gathered.
Yeah.
Really, we're very confident. As I always explained, when we were not confident with charging for genocide, for instance, we wouldn't dare go there. But we're very confident that what we have gathered, the evidence we've put together supports a genocide charge, and it supports crimes against humanity and war crimes. And this is why we are bringing this application at this time. So I'm very confident of the evidence we've placed before the judges.
It's got to be interesting for you personally. This is a big deal.
It is. It is very big. It is very big. But if you look at it in the sense that, okay, we're asking for an application against a sitting head of state, well, yes, you will say that the level is so far. This is the first time that the ICC has done that. But then if you look at all our situations, you look at the crimes that are being committed, whether it is in Uganda, whether it is the Democratic Republic of Congo, or whether it is the Central African Republic, and now Sudan, the victims are crying out for justice in all of our situations. They are crying out for justice, and maybe if you say all our situations put together is a big deal, oh yes, it's a really big deal. Because the biggest challenge we face today is executing the warrants.
Right.
This is the biggest challenge we face as a court. But it's very exciting. It's a challenge, but I think it's very exciting as well. It's a challenge that we cannot run away from. I think we need to rise to the challenge and take the opportunities that are offered.
Do you find yourself, well, let me back up. Louise has a term limit.
Yeah.
He's got 2 or 3 years to go.
I think 4 years.
4 years.
Yeah.
Is he likely, well, back up, as he looks at that, and since it is a term limit,
Yeah.
does he sort of look in chops of time where I want to start something which I can see to completion? Or is that something that whatever happens, happens?
No, I think Louis is very much driven by the gravity of situations, where we have to intervene. I don't think that he's saying, I cannot speak for him, but at least from the way we work, I know that he's very passionate about the work. He's very concerned when the situation is grave enough to warrant our intervention. And also, given the fact that it is very difficult to know what happens in these situations, what is going to happen. Are the warrants going to be executed? I don't think he's really saying that I can only take on what I will be able to finish on my watch. Mm-hmm. No, I think he's passionate about his mandate, and he's concerned about the grave situations. And if really he is satisfied, at least from what I know from the time we've been working, if he's satisfied with the evidence that he needs to open an investigation where we have jurisdiction, yeah, he does that, whether he will finish it in his term or not.
That's true.
He does that.
5 years from now, where do you want to be?
5 years from now. My term limit is, as you know, 9 years. After the 9 years, I don't know whether I really want to leave the international criminal justice scene. I've not thought about yet, where to move on. But it is an area that I'm very passionate about. It is an area where I think I have now enough experience to be able to contribute more. And I don't think I would also be too old then. I think I would still be full of energy and to give my best, to continue to give my best where the opportunity presents itself. Otherwise, I plan to go back to my country, the Gambia, and to also continue to serve my people in the best way that I can.
Well, this has been terrific. If you had to ask a question of, well, you've asked this. Mm-hmm. What question should I, on behalf of the Robert Jackson Center's archives, mm-hmm, ask you? What's the one you're saying, gee, I wonder why Greg Peterson isn't asking this question?
Mm. I think the interview has been very good.
I wasn't looking for that.
You seem to have covered most of the areas. I'm glad that I'm able to talk about my passion for this work. I'm also glad that I've been able to discuss some of the current challenges, because these are the things now that are important for me. Mm-hmm. Our current challenges, how do we deal with them? How do we rise to them? Maybe one question I would have expected you to ask me is how much more can we continue to support the ICC, mm-hmm, so that the execution of your mandate is facilitated?
And your answer would be?
And my answer would be, this is terrific, because it's giving us an opportunity to expose to a different public, a divergent public of what the ICC is and what help we need. So this is already, it's very good. But also I hope that the work of ICC will, as much as possible, be disseminated. There can be some form of outreach, if possible, where ICC can be explained that it is not this tyrant court imposed to try only the weak, leaving the powerful, if you may. And also to wherever there is good information that is relevant for ICC's work, to pass it on. And also to urge governments, if possible, to support the court, to cooperate with the court, because the ICC, okay, maybe it's no longer a baby, but it's still in a very vulnerable stage. Mm-hmm. And it is only the support that we can get from institutions like yourself, organizations like yourself, that can actually sustain ICC to grow from strength to strength, and to keep the dream we all had when the court was established 10 years ago.
I love your passion. It's really infectious, and yep. I really welcome the chance to meet you, and I'm glad you're here at this conference, and may it be the first of many.
Yes, Definitely. I have enjoyed myself tremendously. I think they are terrific people here. I think the center is terrific. They're doing a great job. And I hope also that we will continue to collaborate and cooperate with each other. It's very good for me too. I'm really, really very thrilled to be here.
Well, thank you very much. It's
You're
a
welcome.
pleasure.
Welcome.